Welcome to the 393rd episode of the Video Games podcast, where I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. If it runs on electricity and responds when you press start, discussing it here is fair game. Today, I am recording on June 16th, 2024. My name is Brad Galloway. I am the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of numbers from 0 to 10 when it comes to scores, along with offering accessibility info on every review we publish. All right, folks, thanks for joining me today. Got a jam-packed show for you as always, and as always, going to kick it off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news items, industry happenings, and basically anything randomly game adjacent that caught my eye in the last 7 days. 5, 6, 7. 7 days. Okay. Let's kick it off with the Lies of P Artbook just announced. It's going to be hitting shelves in November, coming from Dark Horse Publishing. They are a wonderful publisher located down in Oregon, last I checked. Responsible for a whole slew of comics over the years, but they've also gotten into book publishing. Don't know when they started, but they're there now. I am a big fan of their books. I own basically every single Masters of the Universe book they've ever put out, and they've put out many. I want to say they put out at least 5 or 6, like really chunky hardbacks, like some big ones. Good print quality, good bound hardbacks, good stuff. So they're now moving on to, I guess, video games. I'm sure they've done something else that I wasn't aware of. But right now, what we're talking about is the Lies of P hardcover art book, which I'm actually kind of excited about. I think in my circles, and probably yours as well, Lies of P was a pretty big hit. It's one of the most successful Souls-likes as far as quality, artistic vision, and ability to kind of hang with From in terms of control and design and just overall polish. You know, I wasn't sure about it at first, but Lies of P ended up being really one of my favorites, despite a few difficulty spikes, a few annoyances here and there. But overall, great vision, great control. I really came to love the character of P, and it was a great experience. So I would be pretty interested, actually, in checking out this art book, and I bet if you're listening to this podcast, you would probably be interested too. So here are the details. It's going to have 224 pages, which is pretty big. Measures 9 by 12 inches. Will be available in bookstores November 12th, 2024. In comic shops November 13th. Pre-orders are open now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, TFAW. I have no idea what that is. TFAW? Is that a bookstore? I have literally no clue. And your local comic shop and local bookstore, if it's not one of the ones I just mentioned. It will retail for $49.99. Check out Dark Horse Comics website or their social media for more news, announcements, and updates regarding the Lies of P art book. I bet it's going to be a real humdinger, as the kids say. Moving on, Helldivers 2, still playing that, still putting in tons of hours. I think I don't even know how many hours I put into it, but I'm at level 58 right now, which doesn't seem like a lot. I think they just raised the cap to 150, but it takes a lot of time to get to that level. I've been playing it basically at least a couple missions every day, so it's definitely a time sink for sure. They just dropped a new War Bond. This is kind of like the DLC stuff that you can get. None of it's necessary, but it's just kind of fun to have, freshens up the game. It's called the Viper Commandos War Bond. You get jungle gear this time. You get like a beret, new helmets, some armor that has like the shoulders pieces cut off because I guess it's hot and sweaty in the jungle. You get some skins. This is the first time you've had skins for equipment. You get a new skin for your drop pod. It's camo. And you get a new skin for the drop ship, which is also camo. I have got the drop pod camo, and I got to be honest, I don't notice it because I'm in the drop pod when it's dropping, and it come down so fast, I just don't even notice it. But I am looking forward to unlocking the camo drop ship. That should be much more noticeable. Comes with some guns. I gotta be honest, not too impressed with the guns. It's like a light penetrating assault rifle, which is like fine, not really super differentiated from the other ones we've already got. Comes with a shotgun that you can use as a secondary, which is fine, but it's also light penetrating, which is a bummer, which means it doesn't get through the medium armor of some of the chunky monsters that come get you and bite you in the butt. It also comes with a throwing knife, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm very curious about the throwing knife. I suspect it's going to be just a prestige item where you put it on because you want to show you're a badass and that you can kill monsters by having this little toothpick at your side. I doubt it's going to be worth a damn, but I am curious. It would be amazing though if like you threw it, because it's a throwing knife. It would be amazing if you threw it and it just like one-shotted one of the big dudes. That would be incredible. So it's not going to happen though. I doubt that's going to happen, but I am curious to see, and it's kind of a bold move to put a knife in what is essentially a giant galactic gunfight. So we'll see how that goes. Along with the War Bond they just dropped a massive patch that had more than 100 pretty substantial changes to basically everything. There's a whole list up on the Helldivers Discord. I believe many of the major news outlets have covered it as well. I'm not going to get into all of the changes, but it seems like the devs have been listening to the community. And then we've had lots of complaints about like some weapons feeling underpowered, lots of weapons not working correctly, lots of just rough edges and kind of little minorly disappointing things. I'll give you an example, a couple examples here. So the machine gun sentry, if you've got the machine gun sentry, you call it down from your ship, it drops down to the ground, little machine gun pops up and it shoots guys automatically. It can be a good help, but it's not really anybody's first choice, I don't think. And here's the commentary. They buffed the function of it, and here's what the developers had to say. The machine gun sentry felt like a worse version of the Gatling sentry, and we wanted it to have a different place in the toolbox. We've lowered the cooldown to make it more available and more useful when changing position often. So less effective, but you can use it more often. That might be a good use if you're getting swarmed constantly. So that's a good change. I guess not a major change, but a good one. Here's one more change just to give you another sense of what they're doing here. For the grenade launcher, developers say, the grenade launcher is intended to be good at softening up hordes of enemies and to provide utility for destroying spawners. While it is still good at destroying spawners, the explosion was too weak to reliably damage medium enemies. We are changing its explosion damage. That should put it in a better place when it comes to dealing with hordes and more effective against some medium armored enemies. So that's good. I like the grenade launcher already from the get-go, and this sounds like it makes it better. It's interesting because in Helldivers, there's a bunch of things you can call down. If you haven't played the game, basically you start the game with like your soldier that drops down from your ship. You hit the planet. You've got a basic gun and like some grenades, and that's it. And everything else you can just choose to bring with you. There's a whole slew of like 20 or 30 different items you can bring with you. You can only carry 4. So out of like 20 or 30, you got to choose 4. And sometimes some are better for some missions than others. But honestly, I feel like there's only like 5 out of all of them that are like really good that you can depend on. And the rest are just like, okay, not as good as some others, or some of them just never really worked properly. Some had really, really limited use cases. I mean, for example, why would you ever choose a stun grenade when you could have like an explosive grenade that would kill somebody, right? So I think some of these things have pretty limited utility, and a lot of the community was feeling like, you know, a large part of this game's enjoyment is the progression, and progression comes by unlocking items. But if you unlock something that doesn't feel like it's worth a damn, then it feels like all your effort was really not for any good value. I mean, it's certainly fun to play, and I would play it regardless, but it does feel good to like work hard, get some resources, unlock a new thing, and have a new toy to play with. But then when you get it and it sucks, it's just like, well, what the hell is that all about? So I definitely feel like the game is slanted towards the difficult side and not towards the player empowerment side, which is fine. I get it. But a lot of the weapons definitely feel like they needed a buff. I'm not done going through this list. I'm still just kind of experimenting with some of the new changes, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they did there. But heads up, there are more than 100 changes, and most of them sound like they are for the better. I don't believe, taking a quick glance here, I don't believe anything got a nerf from what I can tell. I mean, I could be wrong, but from what I'm looking at, it looks like everything got a buff, and that to me feels like it's moving in the right direction. Final bit of housekeeping here. The Talos Principle 2, which was an incredible fucking game. It was definitely one of my favorite picks last year. I loved it so much. I was a big fan of Talos Principle 1. Had one of the best video game stories I've ever played through, one of the best endings. And I'm a huge fan of that. I'm also a huge fan of Talos Principle 2. I got to say, I am ashamed. I am ashamed to admit I didn't finish it. I loved it, but it's a pretty chunky play, and I was really taking my time going through it. I didn't want to rush because I just wanted to savor every minute. I was doing as many conversations as possible. I was finding all the secrets. I was trying to like 100% every single level. I didn't want to leave anything behind. And so I was going through it pretty slowly. And then, you know, as per usual, review responsibilities, podcast responsibilities, editing responsibilities, real life, job, family, etc., etc., etc. And I had to put it on hold for a while. So I am very ashamed to admit I have not finished Talos Principle 2 yet, but I will. It's definitely one of those that I'm going to finish for sure, guaranteed. To increase my level of shame, they just they just dropped the DLC. So not only did I not finish it, I didn't finish it before the DLC dropped. It's called Road to Elysium. It is available now on PC, PS5, and Xbox. It costs $20. It's not a free, but that's fine. I think $20 is pretty reasonable for the quality this game delivers. Here is the little blurb. It says, following the events of the Talos Principle 2, Road to Elysium continues the evolution of the robot world, providing you with a new perspective on some of the key moments from 1K's journey. 1K is the main character of the game. And challenging you with puzzles built around both new and pre-existing mechanics. This 3-part coda will reunite you with beloved characters and put your puzzle-solving skills to the test through a series of thought-provoking new stories. That sounds great. If you haven't played the Talos Principle, it's a fucking smart game. Very intelligent. It asks a lot of challenging questions. It really gets into the nature of transhumanism, about what is a person, what is a soul, what does it mean to be alive, all sorts of things like that. How do you relate to people? You know, what do you owe others? What do others owe you, if anything? What is the nature of life, etc., etc.? It's not a light play, but I think it's a marvelous play. I'm a huge fan, and I'm very excited. I will buy this DLC. I will play it. I will finish the main game. And if you are a Talos Principle fan the way I am, heads up, this is out. It didn't get a lot of fanfare, so I definitely want to pimp this a little bit. Check it out for sure. And that is going to do it for housekeeping. Just 3 items today. Before I get to the main portion of the show, just a quick reminder that you can help support this very podcast, the one you're listening to, literally right now by going to patreon.com/the So Video Games Podcast. Every little bit helps with the cost of hosting and such. Those costs never go away. They only get higher. So even $1 is an amazing help. And if you have participated already, if you have put your money where your ears are, if you're already a patron, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I definitely appreciate it. Okay, also, heads up, there's a So Video Games Discord, which any listener is welcome to join free of charge. If you would like to join up and continue the conversation after the show, just shoot me an email and I will send you all the deets, and you're welcome to join us. All right, we're about to crack into the main portion of the show, but before we get to that, I do have a special surprise. Some of you may remember way back in the day when this was a 2-person podcast. It started out with Corey Motley. Shout out to Corey wherever he is in the world. But then Carlos Rodella stepped in to fill Corey's shoes when Corey left, and Carlos has been a great friend and a wonderful podcaster for many years, and then he had to step away from the show. But in the interim, I have been holding it down on my own, and I was talking to Carlos via text a couple days ago, and he sent in a brief little clip. He was not able to join me here on the show, but he wanted to give a shout out to the folks who listen. I know he's got lots of fans and people miss him. So without further ado, I'm going to play the clip that Carlos sent in, and we're going to get to it right here and right now.
Hey everybody, this is Carlos. Remember me? I'm a person that talks about games sometimes too. And I'm here on location. I don't know what the location is. My room, which I need to leave more often. I just thought I'd give you a quick update on some games that I'm playing. I'm not officially on the podcast right now, so, you know, just a little something. Brad's holding it down, talking about so many games each week. It's crazy. It's so weird to not be doing it, actually. But at the same time, it's been helpful because I have a lot going on right now. But I will say this, I'm still playing games. Actually, not as much as I was during podcast time. That's definitely true. But the number one thing I'm playing when I do play anything, and I'll probably finish it tonight, is Phantom Fury. Who knew about this game? 3D Realms. It's like an old school game, like a Half-Life or a Doom. You know, first person. The graphics look old school. It moves fast though. I don't know if it's 60 frames per second, but it feels fast. It feels fluid. It's just fun to play. Basic jump, run around. The story is kind of weird where you're basically a woman who wakes up and, you know, of course, has kind of an amnesia thing. She has a mechanical arm. She kicks ass. She picks up all sorts of different guns. She can punch things with her mechanical arm. And she's just a badass. And you don't need to know much. You know, you just go fight bad guys and other things later on. And it does interesting things too where you're like getting in vehicles. It felt like Halo for a minute. like the Halo vehicles. And then you do different things. Like I used a claw to pick something up, and they mess with like the gameplay elements a little bit. But in general, it's a first person shooter that feels old school and new school at the same time. We would talk about that on the show. Like, hey, this game feels like it's from the olden days, but it's, modern sensibilities. It's not too many modern sensibilities besides it's fluid. And it's just awesome because a couple things. One, the whole vibe is awesome and funny. There's like comedy in it. I went into a bar and just like listened to people talk, and it was hilarious. Like the NPCs had funny dialogue. There's like old computers and all these old just technology and stuff in the game. And I found an old computer that said it was DOS. You might have seen this on my TikTok. I don't do that as much anymore right now either. But I did make a video of that because I saw a computer and it was DOS, and I booted it up, and it booted up exactly like those old computers. Brad, watch it. You'll see. Exactly. Him and I both had this computer. The same, weird sounds, and you had to wait for it to finish. Oh, it brought me back. And again, this is just a random thing in the game. If you shoot an aquarium, the water comes out and goes down. These simple little physics things that are in there, it just makes the world feel like believable, and it's just fun to explore. And then you're just like kicking ass again. I can't speak highly enough of it. Phantom Fury, it's such a nice, relaxing thing. I have like all this tumultuous stuff going on, and it's just so good to relax with it. So that's one game. 3 minutes. There you go. And the number 2 game, the only other 2 games, I'm only playing 2 games, is I watched, all the stuff's going on right now, Summer Game Fest, and every single showcase you can think of. I didn't listen if Brad talked about it on the show, but so many. And yeah, like I was watching stuff and it showed new DLC for Alan Wake 2, and it's quirky and weird and like Twin Peaks. It's called Night Springs, and it's based on weird characters and characters from other games. And I'm like, wow, I want to play that. But if you remember on the podcast, I got bored with Alan Wake 2. I fell asleep. And then at times it was too hard, so I had to like push down the difficulty. I need a game to be simple right now. And so I was like, well, I really want to play that DLC. It looks quirky and weird. So I went back. Obviously, that's where I was leading. So those are the only 2 games I play. At night, I mess around with one of them. And Alan Wake 2, I think because I did knock it down to story mode, I'm not getting as lost, and it's kind of easy now. I think I'm getting through it pretty quick. Because that's the other thing, is like I was falling asleep because I would get stuck somewhere, and I didn't want to do it over and over again. So yeah, that's the 2 games I'm playing. And Alan Wake 2, as soon as I finish it, which I don't know where I'm at now, but I'm pretty far in the game, I'll jump into that DLC, because that's the main reason I just want to play that Night Springs. And if you don't know, it's out now, Night Springs DLC. Other than that, yeah, not doing really TikToks, not doing much of anything besides my AI art, which I'm doing on the side. But I'm working. I'm just like working and getting through health stuff and family stuff. So I hope everybody's doing great. And I'll talk to you soon, and I'll be on the show at some point. I'll give Brad a call, a holla at him, and have a good rest of your show. Unless it's the end of the show, then I would say the tagline, but I don't know where this is going. It's going in a show. And yes, I'm not going to go through Summer Game Fest and all the showcases, PC showcase. Like, it's crazy. There's too many showcases. Stop it. And everyone's probably going to talk about how awesome Xbox Showcase was. Most of those games are 2025. How many of those games are going to be 2026? I'll believe it when I see it. That's all I'm saying. Brad, over to you. Or this is the end of the show. I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Carlos, for that clip. It's good to hear your voice. I'm sure that many people listening to the show are glad to hear a little bit from you. So thank you very much for that. It's always good to reconnect there. Okay, good. Excellent. Now, moving on to the main portion of the show here. We've got lots to cover, and I better get to it. Only one circle back this week. Circle backs, in case you don't know, are when I have covered a game in greater detail in the past on a previous episode, and I'm not going to get into that same level of detail now, but I want to just kind of circle back to let people know how it's going, to see whether I finished, what I thought of it as the game went on, etc., etc. So just one today for Death Trick Double Blind. This is the visual novel, which has a dual storyline. A circus performer has been murdered, and in one storyline, you are a fellow circus performer who is taking her place. You dress yourself up to look like the person who was murdered, and then you're trying to find clues in the circus. The other storyline is that you are a detective hired by the circus to come and investigate this murder. And so you play these two characters in alternating roles as you go through talking to people, looking for clues. It plays very much like Phoenix Wright, if any of you are familiar with Phoenix Wright, which I think is a fantastic series. One of my all-time favorites, definitely. The first trilogy, anyway. So you talk to people in visual novel style, great artwork, nice music, and I really like the UI. I think it's very clean and streamlined. I think it's very thoughtful. I think altogether it's a very thoughtful package. But I did put some more time into it, and I will say I found it, unfortunately, a little bit too freeform for me. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So you have a limit of like 5 quote-unquote actions per turn with each character. So let's say that you're the detective and you want to go talk to somebody. The game is kind enough to give you some objectives. They let you know you're supposed to be investigating this, or you're supposed to find out that. So you look at the map. There are different locations you can go to, like little points of interest on a map. And so you pick one, the game warps you there, and then you talk to whoever's there, and you get to ask like 5 questions, or you can ask like 4 questions and then search, or you can present evidence, or you can contradict someone. So every time you do something, you've got like 5 turns. And then when those 5 turns are over, you switch to the other character. Now, at first, not a big deal, because I was kind of just coming to grips with the game, kind of learning the systems and such, and just kind of taking it all in, and that was fine. But then as I got further, I started to notice that time limit was really kind of wearing on me, because I would sometimes be in the middle of an investigation, and I'm like, why is the turn stopping? Like, there's no real thing happening. It's just like, it's not like somebody comes in and interrupts you or anything. It's just like the game stops. It goes, 5 turns over, next character, and you switch. And it just was really kind of disruptive to the flow of the storytelling. And I also felt like it was a little too freeform in the sense that like there were many locations to visit, lots of people to talk to. And I guess they give you some general like objectives, like talk to somebody or find out something about someone. But honestly, I kind of was wishing for like a little bit more linearity, just to kind of, at least at the beginning, to kind of get me more off on the right foot. I just felt like I was kind of wandering and just talking to people at random. And I was really like bothered by the time limit. I don't know if it really makes a big difference. Maybe it was just in my mind. Maybe it's affecting me more than they meant it to affect me. But I felt like a lot of pressure, because I was always like, okay, I want to talk to this person, but I also need to search the area. But I also want to like present this evidence, and I don't know if that's going to work. And I was afraid of like using up my turns, and then just kind of getting stuck. I also will say, when you go into searching for clues, you push like left on the D-pad or something like that, or maybe it's right, whatever. If you push that on accident, because the D-pad has multiple functions, if you accidentally push the wrong direction, it'll use one of your turns because you're going into quote unquote search the area mode. But if you didn't mean to, that turn is gone. And so sometimes, and in fact, I hate to admit this, but it happened more often than I really meant to, I would hit like the left on the D-pad when I really meant to hit right or whatever. And then I would like waste a turn and be like, damn it. Oh, like it was just bothering me that I felt like I was under this time pressure. And again, I don't know if it really makes a big difference. I don't know ultimately what the time pressure means. Do you only have a certain number of turns? Does the game end at a certain time? I don't know. It's unclear. But I felt that time pressure combined with my general feeling of like a lack of focus, and I just like, it just wasn't working for me. Like, and so I bounced because I just couldn't get into a comfortable groove. So I think it's really still worth looking into. And this is maybe a more me thing than a game thing. I think it might just be my personal foibles, that it was kind of rubbing me like lightly the wrong way. But I think the art is great. I think the story is interesting. I think the UI is great. I think there's a lot to like here, especially if you're a Phoenix Wright fan. But just know that the time limit is there, and it just really was kind of wigging me out. It probably wouldn't bother other people as much. And maybe some people would appreciate the more open nature, which is kind of in contrast to what Phoenix Wright is. It's a little bit more on rails. So I'm not slagging it at all. I think it's a cool game. It just wasn't for me, not right now. Who knows? Maybe I'll come back to it when I'm in the mood sometime. But I definitely think it's worth a look if you like visual novels that give you investigation properties. I think it's worth a look if you like Phoenix Wright. I think it's worth a look if you like circuses and playing detective. There's a lot going for this. It just wasn't a perfect fit for me right now. So that was Death Trick Double Blind. That is my only circle back this week. Moving on, getting to a game I've been quite curious about for a while, and I've really struggled to get like information on it. It's really hard to tell what this game is about and what it's like. It's called V Rising. It's been on PC for a while. It's coming to console. I believe it will be on console by the time you're listening to this podcast. It should be available already. And I've seen it from PR, from people talking about it. I've seen videos and stuff, but it's just like there were certain aspects of it that I just didn't understand, and I was having difficulty getting a grasp on those things. And now I fully understand them. So now that I've played it, I was sent a code from PR, by the way. So thank you very much for that. Full disclosure. What is it? What is V Rising? So it is basically Diablo overhead, like isometric perspective. You play a vampire that you create, male or female, and you can change some of their features, their pointy ears, tattoos, whatever. You know, you can kind of customize. There's not a million options, but there's like okay options, and I guess you're from an isometric perspective anyway, so it's not super impactful regardless. But you start off the game in a crypt, you wake up, some story about like, I don't know, bad stuff happened. Vampires used to be real big, and then they got pushed back by the humans. They retreated into their hidden crypts, and now, I don't know, some time has passed, 100 years or something, and you are now coming back out to the surface to reclaim your vampire legacy or whatever. So, I mean, fine start. You begin the game, and it's a pretty good tutorial. They walk you through stuff in a really good way. I chose a female character. I don't think it really matters. I think it's strictly cosmetic. And you get some powers right off the bat that are mapped to your buttons, and they all have cooldowns. You get like a dash. You get a fireball. You have a couple other things. I forget what they are. Anyway, so you get like these vampire like styled powers, and you get let loose in the world. And from that point, it just becomes super open. Do whatever you want. And I have to say, I was a little bit like, what am I doing? Like, what's going on here, guys? So it takes a little bit of time, but basically what happens is there is no narrative in this game. And I was confused by that because I kept waiting for story beats to happen. I was like, where are the other vampires? What is the main conflict happening here? What am I doing? Like, what's happening? I mean, I get that I woke up from my crypt after 100 years, and now that I'm here and I'm awake, like, what is the order of business? I guess I don't know. And so it come to find out there is no story. And that was really the biggest thing that threw me for a loop, and the thing that I ultimately didn't like and why I bounced from this game, even though I think it's actually genuinely a pretty good game. You get set loose in this world, and when you look at the map is like enormous. I was like, wow, this is a very, very large parcel of land I'm let loose on here. You can go basically wherever you want. I'm sure it's gated by difficulty. I would imagine that the further you go, the tougher the monsters get, so they probably naturally gate you close to the starting point. And the tutorials work you through these like series of menus, and it really quickly becomes apparent that not only is it a Diablo-like, it's also very heavily based on crafting, which is fine, I guess. I'm not the world's biggest fan of crafting, but I mean, it's well done here. I think it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand once you know what the systems are. And like, once you understand what the game is going for, it all kind of works. So you pick up a plot of land. There are a few likely suspects, and then they want you to build a castle. So you need to rebuild your castle. That's the first order of business. So you look around your immediate area. You look at like, you got 3 or 4 different choices. You pick whichever one you like. It's basically just like this like abandoned wreck of a castle. You go in there, and then you start like collecting materials. You collect wood and stone and animal skins and, I don't know, potatoes and water and like, I don't know, whatever. Doesn't matter. You collect like basically everything that's not nailed down and some of the things that are nailed down. And then you start crafting things, and the game walks you through step by step. Like, okay, first you need to make some floors, get these resources, make a floor. Then you need to make a wall, do this to make the wall, etc., etc. And you kind of just like go up the skill tree. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. Like, I want to be like doing something a little bit more active than collecting resources, but honestly, it feels good to control. I think the controls are very smooth. I think the graphics are really nice. I like the idea of being a vampire, and honestly, the idea of building a castle is pretty cool as well. Like, it's building up your little fort and your keep or whatever, and then like protecting it is fine. But then you start to get the sense of like how this game is different from other games. So clearly, it's meant to be played online and with other people. There is a PvP mode, which I'm like, fucking no way. because apparently in that mode you can connect up online, you host your own server, and then other people can visit your world, and then they're gonna wreck your shit. Why in the world would I want to do that? I don't want to do that. And plus, I don't want to wreck anybody else's shit. I just want to be left alone. I'd be a super peaceful vampire, except for when I'm in the village biting necks. But other than that, I'd be a pretty chill dude. So I wouldn't mess with people. And I don't want people to mess with me. So I turn that shit off. You can also play co-op, which is, I mean, okay, cool. But like, again, there's not really like a story. There's not really a quest. And I guess what progression is supposed to be is an ever escalating series of crafting menus that let you get better and better gear, that let you go further and further afield. And then eventually you get to a point where you have to defeat these, like, I don't know, special blood types or something. There are a number of like big boss guys that are wandering the map. And I think my first one was like a giant wolf, I believe, where you have to go after this. I think they're called like alpha blood or something like that. I forget. But, you know, once you get strong enough, you got to go fight these bosses. They unlock like real good rewards for you. Some big next step in the crafting rather than just like these little upgrades. And then that enables you to keep climbing up the ladder and so forth and so on. But that's really it. So the draw of this game is creating your castle, creating your little territory, and then I guess going after these boss alpha blood characters and just like keep climbing up the skill tree and the crafting tree, which is like fine. It's fine, but I got to be really brutally honest with you. It's not enough for me. I need a storyline. I need a big boss to go after. I need villagers to terrorize or to befriend. It would be great if there was like a little morality meter, or if there were side quests, if there was something to talk to, you know, maybe another vampire buddy, or maybe some servants, or ghouls in your graveyard, you can talk to them, or who knows what. I don't know what. I mean, there could be a million things, but there's just like no talking to people, no narrative, no story. It's just being in the world, existing there, defending your area, and then working your way up the crafting tree. Now, it all works great. I think it's simple, smooth, it's fun. I didn't even mention the one of the coolest parts is like how they implemented a vampire's allergic reaction to sunlight is that there's a day-night cycle. Nighttime, you're fine. You walk around, no big deal. It's all normal. When daylight comes, you have to either get back in your castle once you've built a roof. Roof is very key here. If you don't have that, then you need to like get in your coffin and just chill for a while. Or if you're out in the forest, out and about, you got to find some shade. Now, if you're standing in the shade of a tree, you're fine. Like as long as you're not in direct sunlight, it's okay. You're fine. But if you get in direct sunlight, this countdown starts and you get like this little danger meter. And then it's just like, you know, bump, 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 bump. And then and the sun is like a fucking laser and it like bears down on you, starts frying your ass, and like smoke comes up and like, you know, your life is draining really quickly and you got to run and like dash for whatever the nearest shade is. And then once you get back in shade, it's fine. So I think that worked out really well. I think it's really neat and fun, and it really embodies that concept, which is so crucial to vampires. So kudos for that. And I think honestly, this whole game is great, except for there's no motivation. The crafting is not enough motivation. Going up a skill tree is not enough motivation for me. I really need story. Even a little bit would be enough to drive me forward, because I think what they've got here is great. Very smooth, very nice, very polished, but it's just not enough. So I put a couple hours in, had my castle going. One other interesting thing is that you have to collect blood from the area, and you have to use that to power your castle. So all your crafting tables, all your machines, all your wood planers, all of your rat catchers, all the stuff that you have in your castle that runs on energy is powered by the blood that you collect in the field and bring back to your castle. So there's this giant pool of blood that looks like a big ball in the middle of your castle. You dump blood in there, and then it gives you a clock. And when I had it, it was like 16 hours until you run out of power. And it's like real time. It's like real time 16 hours. So it kind of like gives you that, I don't know, game as a service feeling where you got to come back and check in and collect blood and fill up your castle and stuff. That part also, I mean, neat idea, but not something I want to participate in. I'm busy. I've got a fucking life. I don't need some kind of like game clock to force me to come back to my fucking thing. So, I ultimately passed because this game is not a good fit for me on multiple levels. I don't want to be forced back to the game. I need more story, etc., etc. I'm not going to play online, and no one better touch my fucking castle. That would just drive me crazy. But I think it's well done. Like, I recognize the quality of it. I recognize that it's a good product. It is just a product that is not designed for me. So if anything I've described sounds good to you, I mean, check it out. If you're like a player who likes the game as a service vibe, feel, whatever, if you want to play PvP with online people, if you want to gank each other, if you want to play with your friends and work together to build a castle, I think this game works really well. It's got great vampire energy, like great graphics. It's all good. It's just not for me. So hopefully I've given you a good sense of what V Rising is. We met, we had a nice date, figured the vibe wasn't right, moved on, but we parted as friends. So I guess that kind of sums up V Rising. All right, before moving on to the next section, I want to just apologize for my phone pinging. I'm sure you guys have heard the little ding, ding, ding as it goes off. Unfortunately, I am on call. My job requires that I am on call basically all the time, and so I cannot turn the sounds on my phone off. I got to keep an eye on it. So sometimes it's totally fine, nothing happens. Sometimes I get a lot of messages, and I apologize if the dinging is distracting. But it is part of the price I pay for the job that I do, and since I pay most of the bills for this podcast, I got to keep employed, and part of that means I leave my phone on. So sorry about that if it bugs you. Hopefully it's not a big deal. Okay, moving on. This is kind of a circle back, but like it's such a big circle back, I didn't really count it as a circle back. This is about Alone in the Dark. This year's Alone in the Dark. Carlos and I played the demo. In fact, I don't think we even played the main game. We played the demo a while ago, and then we both. I mean, I was kind of high on it. Carlos didn't like it so much, but I was into it, and it gave me motivation to check out the main game, which is what I did. Played about a third of it over this week, and I'm here to share my thoughts. This is the 2024 reimagining of Alone in the Dark. I'm not super familiar with the series, but of course it's one that like basically originated survival horror, even though Resident Evil is the series that popularized it. But Alone in the Dark was first, according to people who know. This is the brand new revamp. It stars two well-known actors, Jodie, I'm not sure, Comer, I believe her name is, Jodie Comer, and David Harbour from Stranger Things. You play a detective if you're David Harbour, or a family member if you play as Jodie. That's not their names, but that's how I remember them. It's kind of like a very Resident Evil-ish third person, get to a spooky house and walk around and do spooky things. There's a very Cthulhu vibe in the background. You choose one or the other character. You don't switch back and forth between them, which I think is a little bit of a bummer. You choose from the start. I chose David Harbour just because I'm more familiar with him from Stranger Things, and he's just a very likable guy. I mean, I see that guy and I'm like, he looks like a good guy. I don't want to hang out with that guy. He looks fun. So I chose him, even though I usually do choose female characters in games, but I went with him this time. I think he does a fine performance, and I know he's a great actor. I think that perhaps the director didn't give him enough to do, and the material is a little bit soft, and so he's doing the best with what he's got. But honestly, I don't feel as though they really utilized his abilities to the greatest effect. I mean, honestly, it could have been anybody. It wouldn't have really made a big difference. So I feel like they maybe paid a Hollywood-style check when they didn't really get a Hollywood-style performance out of him. But again, not David's fault. I don't think it was his fault. I know he's capable of it. I think it's probably just the directorial staff just not really having a lot for him to do, honestly. So basically, you arrive at this big, giant house in New Orleans. You're looking for this guy who has disappeared. He's a patient in this house, which functions as a mental health institute. He's vanished, and so you get there, and you start investigating, and things are weird from the get-go. So basically, it's just like Resident Evil, where there's all sorts of puzzles that have like weird key shapes and weird puzzles that are like super improbable and wouldn't make any sense in real life. So you kind of wander around the house. You get a map before too long, and then like you kind of just like look for clues. The game tells you where to go. And in fact, I wanted to, before I say anything else, I want to give special kudos to the map and also to the hint system. The map is really well done. I found very few problems with it, and in general, it's very informative. It's color coded. It shows you different parts of each level. It tells you what is a locked door, what is a blocked door, what is an area that still has something in it that you didn't find, what is a puzzle that is unsolvable, what is a puzzle that is solvable. So there's a few things that I found were missing from it in specific circumstances, but overall, like 95% of the time, it was really great and helpful. And if I ever got lost, I could just look at the map and I could get a pretty good idea of where I was supposed to go or what I was supposed to do. I also want to give a big shout out to the hint system. Now you can turn this all off. I want to be very clear about that. You can turn all the hints off if you wish. I did not turn them off. I turned them all on. And I believe the developers call it a modern hint system, if I'm not mistaken. What that actually means is they understand that people are probably grown-ups and have jobs and kids and they're busy and they're tired. And so this hint system, dude, it goes way out of its way to tell you everything you need to know about, like, okay, here's this clue. You can find this clue in such and such a room. When you get to the room, hey, there's a puzzle over here. You could probably solve it by doing X, Y, Z. Like, they tell you, like, basically everything. It takes all of the guesswork out of the puzzles. Now, if that makes you mad, again, let me just underline, you can turn all that off. I wanted it, though, because I am busy. I am a grown-up. I've got a kid. I've got a job. I've got a wife. I've got stuff to do. I got responsibilities. And sometimes when I come back to a game, I don't remember where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to do. That's just real life, yo. If that's not your situation, then that's totally okay. But it is my situation. And clearly the developers realize there are people like me out there, because I felt like this hint mode was made just for me. And I was so grateful for it. It was just like, go here and do this thing. Oh man. Okay. Thank you. I totally forgot about that. Or like, hey, go here and do this thing. Sweet. Hey, here's this puzzle. If you need the help, the solution's over in this room. Oh man. Amazing. Thank you so much. So again, it led me by the nose through the puzzles, which is what I wanted. I wanted that. It told me everything. Not a criticism whatsoever. I'm grateful for it. But I expect some tryhards out there, or people who've got more time, or people who really want the challenge will be like, that's too much information. No worries. They got you covered. Just turn it off, man. That's all you got to do. So, okay. Props on those things. Getting to the game itself, it's pretty straightforward, and I gotta be really brutally honest. I found it to be kind of just a little bit boring. One of the things I liked about it was that it has a very strong Cthulhu influence, and I'm a big Lovecraft fan, Cthulhu fan, and it really feels like a mythos type game where, for example, David Harbour would be walking through a room and he's looking for clues, and then you open a door, and then all of a sudden you're like in a brand new place. No explanation. You're just like, you open the door, you were in a library, now you're in a fucking swamp. And it's like, whoa, mindfuck, right? Or sometimes you'll be in a dining room looking at glass or something, and then you turn around and there's like a monster behind you and you're in a different kind of room, and it just like trips you out, which is very in line with like Lovecraft and Cthulhu, like the unexplained cosmic horror. You're just a pawn in some kind of like dark game and you don't know what's going on. And this mansion is very full of like those moments of where you never know what's going to happen when you open a door. You may be transported to a different location, sometimes just like on the other side of the globe or whatever. And it was just really cool. So I like that a lot. I like the sense of the main character kind of struggling against forces he doesn't understand. And honestly, he probably doesn't have a chance against them, which is very typical in Lovecraft stories. So that was all really good. I think the part where it kind of fell down for me was, I guess, number one, the puzzles are just kind of like boring. They're very, very trite, like, you know, rearrange the bottles and match the patterns on the bottles of this thing and get a doodad, or look for the knob that goes to the switch. When you get the knob, you put it on and then you've solved it. And I mean, they were just like whatever. Like, they weren't very interesting. They felt very much like busy work. So that was not great. Also, I feel like the story, despite the fact that I just liked the Cthulhu elements, I think the individual beats were kind of dull. I spent a lot of time just kind of walking around in the house going from puzzle to puzzle, and that was like not super exciting. And when you got to some of the story reveals, I feel like the scriptwriter really let the game down, because I felt there were a lot of gaps in the story that I felt were not well connected or well explained. You would talk to a character and I wouldn't quite be sure who this character was, or they would refer to something that I didn't quite know what they were referring to. Sometimes David Harbour would get to a situation and he would not be freaked out. Like if I was in my bedroom and I walk through the door and all of a sudden I'm knee deep in mud in a swamp, I'd be freaking the fuck out. David Harbour is pretty calm and kind of takes it all in stride, and he doesn't really talk about, oh, you know, I'm super hardened, I'm a supernatural detective, or I've had lots of experience, this is no big deal to me. He doesn't say anything about that. And so I don't know if we're just supposed to assume he is like this grizzled supernatural detective and he's already got like his mental shields up or something. Like, I'm like, dude, you seem unnaturally calm about this. You should be freaking out a little bit more. You should be questioning this a little bit more. And it's all pretty deadpan, again, which is kind of why I kind of blame the director. I don't blame David Harbour, because I know for a fact that he can act really well. I just don't think he has been given the proper direction. So the performance was kind of like a downer. I wasn't really vibing with the story very much because of the happenings are random, but also there should be kind of a through line to them. And I didn't feel like there was enough of a through line. Also, there was a lot of the story that was told when you pause the game. Now, that sounds strange, but when you pause the game, a narrator's voice pops up. And first I'm like, who's the narrator? It's not me. It's like this woman's voice. I don't know who this voice is. And she's reading lots of text. She's reading lots of things. And I'm like, where's this information coming from? Is it like, who's doing this? It just felt like honestly, rather than a connecting, you know, interstitial sort of a thing holding the whole game together, it felt like we, the developers, don't know how to keep this game together, so we're going to just give you these bits, and we're going to read this narration in between the sections, and when you pause, and hopefully that'll be enough to keep it going for you. It just didn't feel like the parts came together for me at all. It just felt like randomness, but not in a way that made sense in terms of like the Cthulhu structure, not in like a supernatural detective way. It just felt like we don't know how to get you from here to there, so we're going to just throw this in there, and hopefully this works for you. So I will say also the combat is awful. There's many times when I was in a small location and like it's impossible to get a good camera view on where the monsters are. You have weapons that you use for melee. You have melee. I had a pistol and a shotgun, and the melee weapons break like basically after like 2 or 3 hits. And so like you hit somebody, your weapon would break, and you'd have to like find another weapon, which was a bummer. Bullets seem to be kind of in okay supply. I never really completely ran out, so that was fine. But overall, combat just did not feel very good. Felt really janky and stiff, and so that part wasn't good. Combine that with the hokey puzzles and the story that had a lot of promise, but just didn't come together. And ultimately, it just didn't work for me. I really gave it the old college try. I really hung in there. I really wanted to like this game because I am a Cthulhu fan and I do like David Harbour. So I was pulling for this one. It just didn't happen, and I bounced. I got through more than 30% of the game, which I felt like was a pretty good chunk, and I felt like I had seen what it was going to be doing for the rest of the adventure. I did not foresee any big changes or surprises, and so I felt like it was a good time to bounce, and I'm not really regretful that I did. So there you go. Alone in the Dark. I mean, a nice try, and good on those actors for doing it, but yeah, just it's not going to hang as one of the perennials in the survival horror genre. I don't think so. I think we're going to probably forget it pretty soon. So there's that. Last game of the show is Paper Trail. Now, I have occasionally read reviews from GameCritics.com. I'm going to do that again today. This review was written by Taylor Pryor, one of the newer writers to join us. I think she's quite talented, and I do like her voice very much. But in response to some of the listener feedback from the past, I actually have played this game. I made special effort to play it. So I will read Taylor's review, and then I will give you my own thoughts at the end. That way, hopefully it'll make the whole thing a little more cohesive and hang together a little better. Okay, here we go. Paper Trail by Taylor Pryor. The high, beautiful soundtrack, a fresh spin on the puzzle genre. The low, countless components to the puzzles can make completion a bit tedious. WTF, the NPC dialogue is wild. Taylor says, I'm not usually one to dabble in the puzzle genre. I'm not great at them, and they remind me a bit too much of educational tasks that were forced upon me in my youth. That being said, I decided to try my luck with Paper Trail and was pleasantly surprised. Its innovative use of paper folding as a mechanic is a fresh take on the puzzle genre, making for a unique gameplay experience. Paper Trail is a puzzle-driven adventure about Paige, a young girl who is dead set on going to university despite her family's wishes to keep her from leaving their little town of South Fold. A budding astrophysicist who likes to, quote-unquote, bend the space-time continuum, Paige makes the difficult decision to run away from home to pursue her dreams. Every level consists of several 2D puzzles which resemble various parts of the world presented as flat sheets of paper. Paths, village scenes, forests, and more. Players will be faced with obstacles, and in order to progress past them, they'll need to fold parts of the world to change the geography, picking up keys, unlocking doors, and collecting origami souvenirs along the way. Paper stages are typically folded vertically, horizontally, and/or diagonally, and as Paper Trail progresses, players are expected to fold each landscape in a myriad of interesting ways. The folding component of Paper Trail is very cool and unlike any other puzzler I've played. Conceptually, Paper Trail has certainly upped the ante on what is possible within the genre. Paper Trail becomes increasingly complex over time. There are boulders that must be moved before a page can be turned or folded, and certain bridges require the pages to be arranged in such a way before page can move forward. This made completing certain stages a bit tedious, and many times I had to restart levels to fix the messes that I made. The swamp and forest levels were especially difficult for me to get through, which is a bit embarrassing given that they're so early. There is a feature that reveals the answers to each puzzle should players get stuck, thank God, but all of these moving parts prevented me from laxing into a good zone with the gameplay. I often had to think hard, and while in-game assistance was available, I was too stubborn to use it regularly since relying on it too much felt defeating. Despite any frustrations I may have had with the puzzles, Paper Trail is visually stunning and the soundtrack even more so. Each level is saturated with color. The music complements the landscape beautifully, and vignettes between each level were easily my favorite part. In them, players must fold the paper on the screen to construct a lovely image that accompanies a moment in Paige's memories and current journey. Each bit of Paige's present aligns with a moment in her past, which is a smart and imaginative way to play with temporality. All in all, Paper Trail is a beautiful, thoughtful experience. The interesting approach to puzzle construction sets it apart from others in the genre, and its audiovisual landscape only adds to its charm. While completing some of the levels was a struggle and having so many mechanics at once was difficult at times, Paper Trail remains a pleasure to venture through and solve. Rating 7.5 out of 10. All right, lovely review. Thank you very much, Taylor. Really appreciate that. And I did play Paper Trail myself. I had it on PlayStation, was sent a code by the publisher, so thank you very much for that, full disclosure. And I gotta say, Taylor has more patience than I did for it. To be brutally honest, I found Paper Trail to be incredibly frustrating. I think it's a cool idea to see each world or each level like illustrated on a sheet of paper front and back. And it's interesting that the game also lets you see the back of the page as well. So like maybe the front of the page is a bridge that's broken and there's water and some land and a couple trees. And then you hit the square button on PlayStation and it flips the page over and you can see pieces of a fixed bridge and a piece of land that will fill in the water and some trees that are cut down or something. And so you have to kind of map it in your mind about when you fold something, where will that piece go, et cetera, fill it back or flip it back. And it's a cool idea. It sounds way cooler talking about it than it does playing it, because I got frustrated almost immediately with Paper Trail. I don't know if it's about my brain. Maybe my brain is having difficulty mapping out the dimensions of these levels, or I don't know what it was, but like I found it to be very fussy and I found it to be very nitpicky, and I often wasn't sure like what I was even trying to do. And some parts where the paper is blocked, like Taylor said, sometimes there's a boulder that you have to like somehow deal with before you can turn that corner of the page because the boulder's holding it down. Sometimes you need to move your character to a different part of the screen because you're quote unquote standing on the part that needs to be folded. And so you need to move out of the way so you can fold that page and then make the path you need to make. It sounds cool as I'm talking about it, but I remember playing it and feeling very aggravated and frustrated. I'm terrible at this game. I'm not good at it. I didn't have a good time with it. I think it's beautiful. I think the soundtrack is great. It's pretty notable. I like the art style very much, but it just didn't work for my brain. I couldn't wrap my head around it, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I bounced pretty quickly, despite the fact that it seems like on paper it would be something that I would enjoy, but it just was frustrating, and I couldn't make much progress. So kudos to Taylor for getting through that. I don't think I would have been able to finish that game, as I have clearly just demonstrated. So anyway, but if it sounds good to you, if you like anything I said, I know this game has a lot of fans, just not me. So there you go. All right, that is the game portion of the show officially done. Before we bounce, as usual, I do have a few non-game things to mention this week. Movies, TV, as per usual. First up, watched a couple movies. First one, Lisa Frankenstein. I believe we downloaded it on, I want to say Amazon. Maybe it was Peacock. I don't know. It was one of the services that I subscribed to. I didn't have to pay extra for it, so it was like included one of those services. I don't know. Just Google it or something. It's fine. It is a very interesting kind of like fable for modern times, but it's set in the 80s. Basically, there's a girl in the 80s who is kind of an outcast, kind of a loner, doesn't get along with people at her school, and she feels very depressed, almost to the point of suicide, just about. She hangs out in graveyards, and she kind of obsesses on this one tombstone that she sees. It's got a figure of the guy who's buried there carved into it, and so she, kind of like romanticizes it a little bit. After a while, it's not really explained how, and I don't really think that's even the point. Like this lightning comes down, and he is resurrected from the dead. He comes shambling to her house as this disgusting looking corpse. It's really gross. He looks like he smells bad. That's how bad he looks. And she's horrified at first, but then she quickly figures out who he is, and then she kind of warms up to him a little bit. She kind of friend zones him at the beginning, and that's part of the story because he has fallen in love with her in his own way, and so he is kind of helping her come out of her shell and giving her some confidence. She is kind of like learning to love him a little bit. It kind of goes in a different direction because she kind of takes it a little bit too far. She gets a little bit too crazy with it, and some pretty outrageous things happen. I mean, people get killed. The main girl kills a couple people to get some parts for the corpse. Weird things happen, and also it's also very much like a period piece in the sense that this is all about the 80s. This movie is drenched in the 80s, and as someone who grew up in the 80s, I'm like, yep, they got that pretty much right. Everything in there is like a direct reference to something that I can remember from my own memory. The clothing styles, the music choices. I mean, I felt like they bent over backwards trying to choose a very specific soundtrack that was very representative of like new wave and alternative sounds in the 80s. The hair, everything about it just like really took me back. I mean, if you're not from that time period, it might be a little weird to you, but trust me when I say they nailed the 80s vibe. So I think it's a really cool movie. It kind of reminds me a little bit, if you know these movies, it reminds me of a good cross between Edward Scissorhands and Heathers. So if you know those two movies and mash them together, that's basically what Lisa Frankenstein is. And another little interesting side note, this was directed by Zelda Williams, the daughter of Robin Williams. I believe this is her directorial debut, and she gives a nice little nod to her dad towards the end of the movie. The main character, the dead guy, is wearing rainbow suspenders, which are a shout out to her dad, who was famous for wearing those all the time. So that was kind of a nice little nod if you remember Robin Williams. So overall, Lisa Frankenstein, I thought it was great. It was definitely a fun trip back to the 80s. I thought it was kind of outrageous and goofy and weird and a little bit off key in some places. But overall, I thought it was a really fun watch, especially if you like horror comedy or anything that's like referential in that way. Also, sticking with the 80s, I was in the mood to rewatch something I watched a million years ago, Maximum Overdrive from Stephen King. He wrote this. He also directed it. And as an interesting side note, my wife was doing IMDb as we were watching, and Stephen King said he was coked out of his mind when he was directing this movie, and he would like to try directing a movie again when he was sober. So, okay, I guess try that, Mr. King. See how that works for you. This is a movie about a comet that passes by Earth, and something about its trail has a weird effect on the machines. Every machine on Earth, cars, lawnmowers, chainsaws, anything that has like moving parts to it, comes alive and is absolutely 100% anti-human. And so everybody is surprised by this. I mean, like loads of people get killed right off the bat. Bridges open and drop cars, chainsaws turn on their owners, people get crushed by runaway trucks, etc., etc. And then this group of survivors holds up in a gas station to kind of fend off these giant trucks and all these bulldozers and stuff. It's pretty 80s. It's also pretty cool. It's kind of an interesting nostalgic look back. I mean, it's not the best horror movie I've ever seen. There's definitely giant holes in the logic, and you can tell that Stephen King was on cocaine. Some of the choices are just really wild. And it does have this weird like slow point in the middle of it, which I was kind of wishing they would hurry up and get through. But overall, it was an interesting watch. I know that Stephen King has a pretty spotty record when it comes to movie adaptations, but overall, I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was okay. The kid, my son, liked it. He thought it was fine enough because plenty of people got killed in it. So I guess win, I suppose. So Maximum Overdrive, I was watching it on Tubi for free. And they did have lots of commercials and they would make it free, but still it was free. So there's that. The final thing, I can't remember if I mentioned this or not. So I'm going to say it. And if I said it already, then just pretend like I didn't. And if I didn't say it, then you will hear something new. I guess it'll work out either way. So, Brokenwood Mysteries. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week, but this is taking place in New Zealand. It's about a detective in New Zealand who likes country western music, and he drives what I guess is a classic car for New Zealand. It looks like a junker to me, but apparently he thinks it's the shit, and he really likes it a lot, even though it's not very impressive. But he teams up with a local detective. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think I have mentioned this before, but we're making our way through the series, and I think it's really fun. I love the landscape of New Zealand. I think the cast is really coming into their own. We're on season 3 right now. We've had a lot of like really goofy mysteries. There was one based on Clue, where everybody that was a suspect had the names of the characters, like Colonel Mustard and Professor Plum, stuff like that. The secondary cast is really growing in their representation. The Russian coroner lady is becoming my all-time favorite. She is like so fucking dry and odd and weird. I love her so much. And the Maori guy who helps out is really funny. He always shows up with like these opportune moments, and it's just all very wink wink, cozy nudge nudge. And I love the scenery. They're in this town, which is supposed to be like a small town, out of the way, away from the larger cities of Auckland or Christchurch or whatever. So it's pretty cool, and it's kind of making me think about maybe moving to New Zealand. That would be kind of an adventure, right? Especially the way things are going here in America. The thought of Trump becoming president is chilling, to say the least. And it seems like he's got at least a 50-50 shot right now, which honestly blows me away. That guy should be behind bars. I have no idea how he's even still in the running. But that kind of tells you where America's at right now, and it doesn't seem great. So I don't know. Maybe it would be cool to move to Brokenwood and partake in some mysteries of my own. Maybe I can help that guy do some detective work. Who knows? If you live in New Zealand, reach out. I want to talk to you. I'd love to ask you some questions or get your perspective. Or if you know of a good place that I could move to that's outside of America, drop me a line. Anyway, before the closing music plays, I would love for you to leave a review, share this show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend So Video Games to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. Again, if you would like to support the show and help with the cost of running this podcast, you can do that over at patreon.com/the So Video Games Podcast. If you want to join our Discord, that's now free of charge. And as always, I would love to get your questions and comments. Hit me up, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on the social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. It's my name, BRADGALLAWAY, all A's, no O's. And that's going to do it for episode 393. Thank you again for joining me here on the So Video Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.